There are two things that can happen. There are delta E equals 0, which is called the law of, in a conservative field. What's a conservative field?
Isn't it like everything inside this box?
True, but the real definition of a conservative field is that it doesn't matter what path you take to go from point A to point B. You do the same amount of work. Okay, if you go this way or if you go straight or anything like that, there's no friction, there's no drag, there's nothing to overcome. So it doesn't matter how you get from point A to point B, which doesn't actually exist in real life, right? No matter what you do, there will always be drag, there will always be friction, right? At least on planet Earth. So a conservative field is a field where nothing changes. It doesn't matter which direction you go. Most of planet Earth is this. For a non-conservative field. Now that means drag and friction exist. So you are always working against drag, against friction. So you're actually never, or heat will be produced, or sound will be produced, or some energy will be lost because of friction or heat or production of something, right? And so all of those things become very important when we're talking about physics. Just remember this. Work done against the non-conservative force. Here's another definition. This we did, right? dt over dx, we developed it. Also, does everybody understand when I write f of x this way, right? Do we all know how to read this thing that I've just written?
Yeah.
How do you read this? Yes, f is a function of x. Can someone give me a number? 7. X squared plus, give me another number. 3. X, give me another number. 8. Make sense? That means f depends on x. That's just oh, by the way, that's what it means. So if you don't want to write it, that's fine. You can come up with your own functions, as long as it's a function of x. We also can write that. Negative. So I hope you've never heard a teacher say you have a lot of potential. Okay, what does that mean for physicists?
You ain't going anywhere.
You're not doing what?
Any work.
Any work. That's why there's a negative sign. And also vice versa. And in your textbooks, you will also see this written sometimes as that, especially when you go to E&M. This funny looking character is called del.
So it's just an upside down delta.
Yes. Or I think it's also called nebula. Sometimes people call it nebula. I tend to think of it as del because that reminds me of delta, and it's an upside down delta. And the reason why this is delta is not d over dt. So remember, delta is what? D over dt, right? But this is an upside down delta. So this, in fact, is, so this is d over dx. And three-dimensional deltas are those. Oh, and actually, no, they're not full derivatives. They are actually partial derivatives. What's the difference between full and partial?
Partial is specific to one variable.
Yes. Yes. So you have to do partial x, partial y, partial z. It's not a full derivative. That means your function depends on x, y, and z. So one time you're differentiating with respect to x, one time you're differentiating with respect to y, one time you're differentiating with respect to z. That one you should have done in Calc 2.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now let's do a question related to this, what we've just done. So I'm going to give you this. That's your function. Your mission impossible today, find velocity and find potential energy function. So velocity as a function of x and potential energy function as a function of x. That's all you have to do. So note, I am now asking you very specific things. I am asking you a velocity as a function of x, and I am trying to get you to derive the value for potential energy, but I'm calling it a potential energy function. It means the same things, except you have to now understand its potential energy as a function of x.
Also, like, koala and sleep for like 20 hours.
That'd be so nice if I wanted to do it before.
Is that
So I'm going to start writing stuff.
and now
If you're working, don't look up. Notice, if this was a function of time, I would just move t onto the other side and that will be done. But this is not a function of time. It is a function of, so I have to do what in order to make it a function of x?
full parts.
Get it? Now I can do the rest of it. Stop me if it doesn't make sense at some point.
I am way too early for me right now. I have a sit-down practice. Mom's like, no.
There's physics students saying that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not doing anything fancy, guys. Plus a constant. Well, I'm not worried about that. Oh, does everybody understand how I went from this step to the next step? That one.
So then A is a constant. Yeah.
A is a constant. In general, if there's ABCs written, they're more than likely constant.